Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. Thank you very much. We go straight to the telephone lines. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your question.
Good night, Mr. Reynolds.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes. You're a bit muffled, so you might have to move that mouthpiece a little away from you. Yeah, that's better.
You hear me now, right?
Yes.
I'm back to Mr. Bousquet.
That voice is familiar. Good evening, sir.
Yeah. I have two questions for Mr. Bousquet. One, Mr. Bousquet.
Yes, sir.
While you were in government, I remember you got some money from Morocco. What happened to those monies? To build a stadium in social.
Right.
That's number one. And number two,
right.
What have you to change your heart towards Mr. King now? Because I remember when you were there, you called the fellas mongrel and
I didn't call anybody mongrel. I explained that from the beginning of the show. That's nonsense.
And all kind of things like that. And now, I remember you said like he was a weak leader, he was not ready yet. So what happened now today? Well, I see you behind him tooth and nail.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I'll answer your question. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thanks for that question.
On the question of Morocco, all I can say to you is that all the monies that were with respect to that particular project, which is something that was all put there and it's all been there and it's all accounted for. And when the time comes, I will explain that situation, because I think some of what was written in this particular report is a travesty, especially as it relates to that. On the issue with regards to my whatever comments that I've made with respect to Mr. King, and now let me make it very clear. Everything in life is relative, okay? And when I speak in terms of Stephenson King today as leader of the party, it is in the context of who is going up against him. And that is the position that I have to take. So I have said here on this program that I don't see necessarily that he may be the full answer to everything. But I think in the context of what is being done now, I would certainly give him my support.
We have another call. Please go ahead with your question, caller. You need to lower your set, please. Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, can you compare the two leaders for me? Well, not leaders. Sorry about that.
Candidates.
Can you compare the opposition leader, which is presently Stephenson King,
right,
and Alan Shastney? I know you've worked with them for 5 years.
Yes.
Can you compare them for me?
All right, thanks,
and
caller.
I remember you said, I have the second question.
Okay, go ahead quickly.
I remember you said that you were out of the politics altogether. You've come back now and said that you want to be political leader.
Me?
I'm sorry, chairman.
Okay.
What would have changed your mind between that time?
All right, thanks for your questions, caller.
What is wrong with your program? Everybody seems to tune in late. I think I've answered all these questions before.
Yeah, I think you just did the comparison of the two. The two.
Look, I think
probably
since I'm vying for the position of chairman, I don't think it's fair for me to go out there and make comparisons between the two gentlemen. You know, this is something that I reserve for my meetings with delegates privately, but I don't think it's something that I should come on air. Because, you see, if I was an independent contributor to your program and completely out of the situation, I think it would be right for me to come in here and say, this person versus that person, I think this person's strong points versus that person's weak points, and vice versa. All I've come here and done is, in the context of what was said, I gave some reasons why I would support Stephenson King in this particular situation. And I think that's about as far as I ought to go. I don't think I should go out there and start saying this one can do this better or whatever the case may be. I don't wish to compare the two gentlemen.
Well, not wanting to compare, but in terms of Mr. Shastney, you work with him as well. I mean,
right.
What are some of his stronger points, stronger suits?
That's a loaded question.
well, let's unbundle it.
I've spoken about Mr. Shastney on programs. I've said he's a man who has a lot of ideas. You know.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
I've said so. You know, but at the end of the day, not all of the ideas are the best. But I mean, I think he has a lot of ideas. I said quite clearly that he's a man. If I were had the opportunity, or if it was left to me, that he would. I see no difficulty in putting him as Minister of Tourism. I think he's got good contacts in that area. He seems to be very enthusiastic about tourism and so on and so forth. But I also said that I think a lot of his ideas need to be vetted. You know, that somebody has to be there and to I think I used the words at the time over him. Perhaps that's not a good choice of words, but certainly I would go as far as to say that they need to be vetted and there need to be a greater level of consensus in terms of what will be allowed to proceed and what will not. But I mean, beyond that, I don't wish to comment about Mr. Shastny, quite frankly.
We have another call. Please go ahead with your question.
Good evening, Mr. Bousquet and
Good evening.
Mr. Reynolds.
Good evening.
Okay, what did I say?
With your question?
I understand that we have a convention and we have two people.
Right.
We have Stevenson King and we have Mr. Alan Shastny.
Okay.
We have a problem with Mr. Stevenson King's leadership abilities. And we know at some point we would need to change our leader. But what about Alan Shastny that tells us that he has leadership qualities? Now we continue to make mistakes where we decide we're going to change, but we never look at who we change into. So I am saying that in the convention on Sunday, we need to understand clearly what our motives are, what our objectives would be, why we want to change the leader, and what qualities are we looking in the current persons that we're seeking to elect as our leaders. I am saying that Stevenson King may have his shortcomings. I'm not saying no. But what about Alan Shastny makes him a better leader than Stevenson King? Okay. We need to ask ourselves that question, and we need to understand that the possibilities exist that the person who we choose on Sunday may be the person that we present to St. Lucia. Which one is better for St. Lucia? Good night.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, I mean, the observations by the caller were very clear. I don't think she had much of a question for me, really. I think she was just saying what she felt about the whole process. Look, I'll say this. I feel very strongly that whatever it is that has to be leveled at Stevenson King has already been leveled at him for the most part. And so, you know, with Alan, we don't know. We don't know. And as a result, I am thinking that I would take my chances with him because I've seen the United Workers' Party get excited about leaders in the past. I mean, they were very excited about Vaughan, very excited about Morella, you know, and these were people who just came in and assumed leadership without any real experience or anything in the past. And both of these were disasters. So are we going to repeat the same thing? I mean, I think it's important to see that there is somebody who has remained in the party through thick and thin, has shown slate, etc., before you go around making them the leader of your party. What's wrong with Stevenson King remaining there for another year? And Alan, if he has all these skills and bright ideas and so on, come on in there and present them. I mean, I'm sure everybody will welcome his ideas. He doesn't have to be leader in order to make a major contribution to the party. And if his contribution is such that people say, wow, this guy is amazing, I mean, you know, he ought to be the one to lead the party, then I'm sure it's something that can happen going forward.
We have another call. Please go ahead with your question, caller. Thanks for holding.
Hello, good evening, Clinton. Good evening, Mr. Bousquet.
Good evening.
Mr. Bousquet, my question to you is, why did Sir John fire you twice? And Stevenson King hired you back, and to the detriment of Mr. Osbert Dovey?
Okay, that's your question?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
You want me to answer that?
Well, the question was posed to you, not me.
John fire me twice? I think everybody in St. Lucia ought to know. And if this lady doesn't know, then that's her problem.
Now going back to what the previous caller said, the one before this last caller, the candidates that have been presented, and we'll come back to that. We have another call. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your question.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Just a question for Mr. Bousquet.
I'm the only one here, sir. Fire away.
Yeah. Did you say earlier on that Stevenson King had never been elected as political leader of the party?
No, I said he never received. You see, I know I speak the English language very well, and people need to listen. I said that he has never received a mandate from the delegates of the party to be the leader. You understand what that means?
So when at the comprehensive school, what year was that? Wasn't he elected wasn't he elected political leader?
No, let me correct you, because that was the last convention. Sir John was there. He was elected as.
Sir John was there?
Yes, Sir John was still alive.
That's the time when Richard Frederick thought he was elected deputy. Sir John didn't already.
Sir John had not died yet. Sir John was still alive, but there was a convention, and Steve was. Well, what happened there now? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. As you mentioned that.
I may be wrong now. I'm not so sure.
Oh, you may be wrong now.
Well, look, man, don't try and take that as a reason for you to jump in the air and let the fireworks out. I mean, I'm conceding that there is a possibility that I may have been wrong.
Then you need to educate them properly.
Well,
now you're saying you may be wrong. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you very much, caller. I mean, if we're going to have a discussion, two people can't be speaking at the same time. So,
but look, the reality is, when I think back on it, I, in all honesty, I felt that he had not received that.
Right. So
I'm still not sure what happened there. I can't quite remember what happened there.
He went up unopposed, I think.
He went up unopposed as what? Because was Sir John dead at the time? Had he passed away already, or was he still alive and there was some... I can't.
But we'll have to check. We'll have to check our archives, because I remember attending that convention.
Yeah, there was something that happened there, because I remember there were positions for the deputies. I remember Richard Frederick went up for deputy and he didn't get it. Mondesi got it, and I think Spider got it.
Spider and Mondesi, right.
So I'm not 100%. He may be right. I mean, you concede that, and people don't even have enough chivalry to say, well, okay, fine, we go along with that. They want to take you and condemn you.
Right. I think I was mistaken on that as well. And we have another call.
But, before we take that call, some of the things that go on here are typical of what happens in this country. And that is that people are set up to call these programs in order to try and make the point. And I hope that the fair-minded persons who listen to this program, who are really the people I'm talking to. I'm not talking to the people who are polarized one way or the other. I'm talking to the fair-minded solutions who can look at something, analyze it, and then come up with a reasonable response to it in their minds. And ask a question if they need clarification. Not to condemn an attempt to try and make people look bad, but in an attempt to clarify their own thinking so that their own judgment can be enhanced. You understand where I'm coming from? This is what I'm about, This is I'm not about just coming here for those people who want to make their little cheap political points to just fire shots here, there, and everywhere. I understand it will happen, but, at the end of the day, let's see them for what they are.
We have another call. Good evening. Thanks for holding. Good evening, caller. Okay, we must have lost that caller. Going back to that point, I mean, you said that Stephenson King might not be the ideal leader for the party. But then compared to Alan Shasday, he might be better.
Steve is not perfect.
Is that what we have been dealing with in our politics? Even at a national level, where you have candidates who are not ideal, but then the electorate have to choose between probably two bad options.
Well, I would hate to call them two bad options.
Hold your thought on that. Hold your thought on that. Let's take this call quick. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your question.
Good night.
Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Good night, Mr. Bousquet.
Good evening, good evening.
I just want to commend you on your public speaking skills. I think that you're doing a very good job, and this is a very important prerequisite for politicians. Yeah. So I just wanted to congratulate you.
Thank you very much for that. I sincerely appreciate it. Let me say this. When I was foreign minister of St. Lucia, before we even get back into the two bad choices and so on, because that might be a little self-defeating. But, as foreign minister, I had certain goals. I wanted to make St. Lucia, for example, the embassy capital, shall we say, of the OECS. So we were able to get the Libyan embassy here. We were well on our way to getting the Moroccan embassy here. I think it would have been here. And we had a number of other embassies, countries that we were speaking to establish their OECS embassies here in St. Lucia. That would have enhanced our own capital notoriety, so to speak, in the world. When you look back at the things that happened and the progress that we made, people only want to point to negatives. I remember all of St. Lucia wanted to crucify me when we went with the Taiwanese. I mean, I was probably the most hated man in the country, right? People were going out there saying I killed Sir John and all kind of foolishness. And at the end of the day, it's probably one of the best things that has ever happened to this country. But does anybody ever come back and say, oh boy, Rufus made a good decision, or he did a good thing, so kudos to him? And I'm not looking for that, But what I'm saying is that there's so much that happened. We moved into that building up there. I was not the one who actually moved in, but I didn't stop the ministry from moving into that building. But the reason for moving into the building was to give the face of the ministry and the face of St. Lucia, give it the presentation that was required if you're going to move into being the capital for foreign embassies in the OECS. And everybody jumped on me. I want fancy office. The Labour Party jumped on me. Well, and I said then at the time, I said, it's not my office. I might be out of here. Somebody else is going to be there. And so said, so done. Has anybody moved out of there yet? So I mean, at the end of the day, when are we going to elevate our politics beyond the foolishness that passes for discourse in this country? And this is the things that I'm here for, because more than anything else, I hope that I can see this thing rise to a level beyond what it is today. We're killing ourselves. People with their own little agendas, they call this program and they want to take little cheap shots at me, in an attempt to score little political points here and there or try and discredit me. Is that going to help St. Lucia? Let's give the callers their time.
We have a call on the line. Good evening. Please go ahead with your question, caller.
Mr. Bousquet, in your tenure as Foreign Affairs Minister, what did you achieve for this country? I remember the list Orlum did something and he get something for us. He bring a number of things for us.
Right.
In your tenure, what did you bring for us? I want to know. What did you achieve for St. Lucia as Foreign Affairs Minister?
All right. Thanks for the question.
Okay. I just think I answered that a few minutes ago. So, who you have listening to your program?
I mean, probably he was holding on the line there.
Oh, he was holding on the line, so he didn't hear. Well, you didn't see I preempted him. I preempted him. So, my friend, I'm so far ahead of you. Because I know what you're all about.
We have another call on the line.
Another cheap shot.
Good evening. Please go ahead, sir.
Get at me. Go ahead.
Oh, please go ahead, caller.
What I have to say is, Mr. Bousquet, you have no respect for the St. Lucian people at all.
Okay.
Nothing whatsoever.
All right.
You keep acting like a Syrian, but you're not any Syrian. No good for the country.
Really?
Okay.
I don't know how I did that, but what can I say?
Well, I mean, as you said, we're polarized and people
have
different opinions.
I guess.
And they're entitled to
but
their
it really
opinions
tells, as I said, I'm speaking to the people who are fair-minded, who can think, who can say, hey, you know what, let me listen to this, and let me, But I knew, the minute it was announced that I was going to be on this program, I know what's going on at this particular point in time, and I knew that the cavalry would have been informed and would be out there waiting to jump on these phone lines in every attempt to discredit me. I knew it.
But you
But I
used to that.
still
You've
come
been
out there. I've been
You've
there,
been in politics since the
and
1980s. So
I can take these barrages, man.
it's
this
par
is
for the
fine.
course
Oh, wait,
for
take
you,
your best shot.
we have another call. Good evening. Please go ahead,
Take
caller.
your best shot.
Hello, good evening.
Good
evening, sir.
Mr. Bousquet, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing just fine,
Mr.
thank you.
Bousquet, I believe that one of the most, how will I say that? One of the most, people might have been saying a lot of things about you, but I think you are one of the most experienced persons who lead this country. Now, I did not vote for about the last elections. Right. I shied away from you all because of all of the scandals. Right. But I always said, if Mr. Bousquet was the Prime Minister, all of this crap that was happening during the Stephenson King leadership, you would not have taken those crap from the other ministers. I believe, Mr. Bousquet, if you really love this country, no matter what, you should have asked to be the leader of the opposition, no matter what some St. Lucians will say, because everybody has a pass. And anybody who say that they do not have a pass, you understand me, they're just lying to themselves. I believe you are one person that can help put this country back where it was. And I believe if you were somebody, I would think to vote for Flavo. But you see, I don't want Stephenson King, and I don't want the other person that there's Alan Shaftney. I would have given you a chance if it was Rufus Bousquet, because I believe you can really do well for this country, and we need somebody like you now.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Let the man talk still, man. Call him back.
Would you ever consider being the leader of the party?
Oh, jeez. Now that's a good question. Boy, do you think solutions? I just don't think solutions would give me a shot.
It's not St. Lucia's. I mean, it's a party to begin with.
I wouldn't do it if I felt that it would put the party in a disadvantageous position. I mean, why do that? No.
No?
No.
Okay, we have another call. Good evening. Please go ahead with your question.
Good night.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah. Mr. Bousquet, you said something earlier on
Right.
concerning the Office of the Foreign Affairs.
Right.
Yeah, you said that up to now nobody has not left there, whereas you were chastised for it, right?
I
Yeah?
said words to those effect, yes, to that effect, yeah.
Yeah. But how you expect them to vacate the place, even up to now, when the place was actually leased for a certain period of time?
Right.
Isn't that,
But I think you're taking it in the wrong context when you say how I expect them to leave the place.
Is that, hold on,
Yeah.
is that your only question, caller?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just waiting for me to extend on my question.
On that. No. You have a point, but my point is that you would have thought at the very least that there would have been some sort of statement to the effect that, somehow or the other this was wrong, this was no good. Something that suggested that this was just some sort of frivolous expenditure on my part. And I tried to explain at the time to people that the actual amount that was being paid, while it was slightly more than what was being paid before, we were actually getting a lot more space and a lot more. So in the end, it literally came to, it was a zero-sum game from a financial standpoint. But again, it's the politics we play in this country. Sometimes, my dad opened a restaurant once, and he had white tablecloths and all kinds of fancy equipment and so on. And it was a great idea, but he opened it at a time when people would leave M&C and walk home for lunch and come back, or they would carry a couple loaves in a bag or something like that. So while it was a great idea, it was at the wrong time. Because ideas may not necessarily be bad, but if they're at the wrong time, they may not succeed.
Right.
And so I sometimes wonder, even when I speak in terms of St. Lucians coming together, while it may be a good idea, we may have a country that's just not ready for that. We just like to fight each other all the time.
Let me just have the caller
yeah, but
have
Mr.
his follow-up.
In closing, I just want to see. You seem to think that people are posted to call you and chastise you. That's not my intention, because I'm not even really a member or supporter of the.
Well, you don't need to say that. I mean,
I'm just saying
because we don't know whether that's true or not. You're like a Zimmerman right now.
The thing about
we don't know who you are.
The thing about it, a lot of the politicians up to now, they still take advantage of the ignorance of the people when it comes to political affairs. All right. And the thing about it, people like you, I have great admiration for you, but I expect you to come straight to the point instead of playing around with the politics. We need to move away from that. Time and time you all say that, but yet still you're still leeching on the ignorance of the people, and that's where I don't like about some of those politicians.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, caller.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you think that politicians play on the ignorance of and to a large extent?
Yes. It needs to stop.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Hello, good evening.
I would like to let you know that I am not one of the setups. But I quite agree. Steve took the blame for most of the ex-ministers.
Yeah.
And they had no regard for him. They caused him to be the irresponsible leader he was. Instead of support, he was messed up. And when that happens, one can get very confused and not perform the way they should. Okay. We all have weak points, and they use it, What all St. Lucians, I'd like to make that contribution. What all St. Lucians should first realize that the Chastain's own a very large part of the business sector in St. Lucia. Putting him in charge would be one of the biggest mistakes St. Lucians can make. They should first look at the alleged, and I say alleged, accusations of the Taiwanese funds being used for election purposes, whereas it was supposed to be used for St. Lucians. Right. If this is true, and he can't be responsible enough for such a small gesture to take care of the people of this country when he was supposed to, do you think he would be able to take care of the bigger picture? A businessman always seeks to obtain a bigger part of the business for himself, and his interest will be for his business instead of the people's business. And I can tell you, for the poor man on the road, is the rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer.
All right.
This is my contribution.
Thank you very much for that contribution.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I'll say is that a lot of this talk about Steve having no control over his cabinet, I think it's overblown. For example, there were things bandied about with respect to Richard slapping Steve and so on and so forth. That never happened. That's absolutely not true. The reality, though, is that Steve allowed people to discuss freely. In other words, he did not impose himself on the cabinet and come and say, as somebody else might have done, and said, okay, at the final analysis, I've heard you, I've heard you, I've heard you. This is what we're going to do. Okay? Very often, he would sit back and allow the ideas to contend and make only a small contribution and go with the wishes of the cabinet, the majority of the cabinet members, rather than in any instance seeming to impose his will by virtue of the position that he held on the cabinet. And if that is to be seen as weakness, I think it was something that was done primarily because of the manner in which he became prime minister. That is my view.
Because you were all equals at that, coming into the cabinet. There was one leader.
That's
and
correct.
The leader vacated,
and in addition to that, you had a whole lot of new guys there who just didn't, to my mind, at that particular point in time, understand how a lot of things ought to work, you know. And it wasn't a good idea to just go out there and attempt to fight people. Allow people to speak, allow them to express themselves, and then let's see how best we can take a decision which will be in the best interest of the majority of the people.
Yeah.
You know?
We have another call. Good evening. Thanks for holding. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Clinton. Good evening, Mr. Bousquet.
Good evening, sir.
Mr. Bousquet, 2 points. One, an observation. I think it is correct that Mr. King did receive a mandate from the delegates after the death of Sir John, because there was a convention, I think sometime in 2009. Can't remember exactly the date, but I could recall that Mr. Motut and Mr. Mondesi and Ezekiel Joseph, you know, sort of...
I remember that. So I stand corrected if I'm wrong, and my apologies for that. You know, I was just saying how I saw it.
I want to know whether you or any member of the United Workers' Party that formed the government of Sir John in the election that he won in I think 2006, was it?
Right.
Did declare your asset to the Integrity Commission. Was the asset, as it is mandated by the Integrity Commission Act, that the assets of Minister of Government or all members of Parliament should be declared to the Integrity Commission? Was their asset declared when you were elected, and after you were voted out of office in 2011, or your asset declared again? And I am waiting to hear you.
Thanks for your question.
Well, that's an important question. But
Very.
there's so many ramifications to these questions that I prefer not to answer it, and I can't answer it for other people.
But I mean, something like that, you see that in more developed countries, that you know, the assets, and this is how you more or less judge what the activities of people in government.
It's the responsibility of the Integrity Commission to deal with these matters, and so we leave it to them.
But isn't the Integrity Commission? Let's be honest. Isn't the Integrity
it's not
Commission
about being honest?
Isn't it a toothless?
We're in a public forum, and this is not a place for these things to be ventilated. Quite frankly, in my own view, I mean, there's a time and place for everything, but in this particular situation, as I said, I can't answer for anybody, and I prefer not to answer that question.
But shouldn't, let me pose a different question then. Shouldn't the Integrity Commission possess more power?
I don't know. I don't know if they should possess more power,
In your
or
opinion?
they should use the power that they possess more effectively. I don't know.
Okay.
That might be something that has to be discussed. Because, you know, what I find is that people tend to go and throw these things out at politicians. There are a whole lot of people.
Right. It's true.
Under the Integrity Commission who fall under that net. And it has never, been. I mean, I have declared to the Integrity Commission for a number of years. Okay, but what I'm saying to you is that there are a lot of people, and this is not something that many of them, whether it's permanent secretaries, other civil servants, foreign ambassadors, you name it, all of these people come under the ambit of the Integrity Commission. So this is a much broader thing, and I don't want to isolate it into a Rufus Bousquet or the people who were in cabinet with me. I don't think it's fair to do that. I think if you want to talk about that, talk about it in totality. And that is how I feel about this particular subject.
But then when you talk about people in cabinet especially, you're talking about people who are elected by the population.
Well,
just before
how
we get
far
to
back are you going to go?
Well, I mean,
You know,
if we need to go way back.
Are you going to go back to, you know, the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the last 15 years? I mean, how far back are you going to go?
As far back as the Integrity Commission existed.
Exactly. You know, so to sort of try and put me on the spot and throw that question out there and ask me to come on there and give a personal view on myself and persons who were in cabinet with me or who went with Sir John, no, I'm not going to deal with that. Absolutely not.
But don't you think, caller, just 1 second, but don't you think that it is even more important for elected officials? I know that, you know, so many people fall under the ambit of the Integrity Commission, permanent secretaries, and you made that point, you know, the controller of customs and what have you. But don't you think it's even more important?
No, I
just
don't think it's more important.
For elected officials.
I don't think it's more important. I think everybody needs to do it.
Yeah. We have a call. Good evening, call. Please go ahead. Thanks for holding. Okay, sorry about that, caller, and please, because the Integrity Commission is something that you know I see as very important and very serious, especially for people.
But I mean, it goes down to a lot of things. I mean, how are you going to deal, for example, with campaign laws in the country, for example? You know, I mean.
The number of things that we have to work on.
So many things that have to be looked at. I mean, do you know who gives money for what? People have to declare who they are, what they give, how much they give. There's only a certain amount they can give to ensure a certain amount of parity in terms of, I mean, you know, I mean, are we going to go down all of these roads? Are we going to get all of these things tightened up? So it's a
number of questions. We have a call. Absolutely. Good evening. Please go ahead with your question.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll be very brief. Firstly, let me just applaud Mr. Bousquet for the way that he reflected. The two callers are back. His question pertaining to the declaring of assets. I applaud you, Mr. Bousquet.
Thank you.
You mentioned that the Integrity Commission should do this and do that. That they should use their powers more effectively and whatnot. Do you not also have a responsibility, Mr. Bousquet, as a former public servant,
right,
and as one who will potentially put himself up in the future for public service, for your own personal integrity, right, to answer two callers back his question? Secondly, before you respond, because I know that you are exceedingly garrulous, Mr. Bousquet, and let me just absolutely. Let me just point out. You want for me to you wish for me to define that word for you?
No, not at all.
No, because you repeated it, so I.
You thought I didn't understand the word? Well, I do.
You did not understand it. Okay.
No, I didn't say I didn't understand it. I said I do understand it.
Mr. Bousquet.
Yeah.
Loquacious would be a synonym.
All right. I understand the word, sir.
Okay, thank you. A caller referred to your oratory skills earlier. And the one point that I need to make about that is that, and it is a bit of a, in the Valley of the Blind, the one-eyed man appears to be king.
Okay.
And I'll leave that at that. But going back to my initial question pertaining to the declaring of assets,
right,
which I think is vitally important, particularly because of rumors, facts of rumors of facts and whatnot, in terms of some very deep-seated corruption, not just here, but throughout this region, right? Where you see individuals who do not have a home 1 year, right? Who are rolling around in a 1989 Corolla 1 year, and 5 years later, they have a 3-car garage with cars filling each and every one of these garages, and cars parked outside. It is very important to ensure that the revenues and the revenue of our country right? That the money that you collect from each and every one of us hard-working taxpayers is spent correctly. So I would like to invite you, Mr. Bousquet, to revisit the question posed to you.
Right.
2 callers are back.
All right, thanks, caller.
Okay. Well, thanks for the invitation. Thank you for the invitation.
Time always goes by so quickly when we're sitting here. We have one more call. Yes.
One more.
All right, caller, please go ahead. You're our final caller. Okay, we lost that call.
Well, I mean, all I can say is it's always nice to get out here. Clearly, this has been a bit of a baptism of fire, but it's only honed my skills and made me feel that, at this particular point in time,
but you're used to that, right?
I'm used to it. And Rufus is an easy target. Rufus is a guy, people just enjoy taking their shots at me and so on and so forth. But I'm out there. Sunday is a big day. I look forward to seeing what the delegates will do. I accept their decision, whatever it happens to be, and then we go from here, and we simply see how best we can do what we can to rebuild the organization and the party. But I recognize that perhaps because people see me as one of those individuals who can make a very big difference in terms of bringing the United Workers' Party into a whole new era, a whole new level of efficiency and acceptability, that it makes you a target, so people feel that they need to knock me down, because if they don't do that, I'm likely to be a thorn in their sides. So with that, I'll say, thank you for having me on the show.
Well, I want to thank you, but we have one more caller that just came through. So let's take that call and wrap up right quick. Okay. Good evening. Please go ahead quickly, caller.
Yes, Mr. Bousquet, I just have one question. I wanted to know, I didn't get the first part of the show, if you were interested in a final bid for the Choiseul 40-bus seat at the next election. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again, I think I answered that.
Yeah, he said he didn't have the first part of the show.
Oh, so he didn't hear the first part. I said that the doors are open. I mean, everybody and anybody who is interested can present themselves. I mean, it's not my seat, the seat belongs to Mr. Theophilus at this time in terms of representing it. And so anybody who intends to or would like to run for the United Workers' Party just needs to go through the process. And the people will decide who they want to choose. That's simple as that.
It's always a pleasure to have you. It's always nice to sit down and, even when you get those tough questions.
Well, I mean, they're good questions, though, and people have a right to ask them, and they're important questions as well. I mean, more than being good questions, they are important questions, and the premise upon which they are presented is absolutely correct. But things aren't always as simple as they seem, so we need to look beyond just simply getting out there on public television or a talk show and just talking about too many things. There's a forum where things like that need to be discussed, and certainly in terms of speaking in terms of colleagues and things of that nature, and I don't think this is the place for it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being here as always. Okay. I want to thank you, those of you who viewed, and those of you who got an opportunity to call in and ask questions and make your comments. Well, you do the show, so thank you very much for making Newsmaker Live what it is. Just a program note, tomorrow evening we have Dolor Factor Live with Delia Dolor, so don't miss that show. And coming up this weekend, we review the latest developments for the past week during the Press Club. That is Saturday night, right after the show. So thank you very much. Until the next time, I'm Clinton Reynolds. Have a good one.